Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we start our new story. If you like our old story, then don't forget to like and subscribe. Now start our new story. When I was around 11 years old, my family and I had just moved from Tennessee to Texas as my dad was working out a deal for a new job. My brother and I were homeschooled at this time, which meant that we could move in with my aunt and uncle with no problems finding a house in a good school district. My family was pretty close back then too, and all of the cousins got along just fine, but we loved to do everything together, especially me and my female cousin Peyton. My immediate family, meaning me, my mom, my dad, my brother, and my sister, I'd spent the past 7 years without a jack-in-the-box. It was terrible too, but we were all born in Texas, so we loved living in Tennessee. We had to go without it now. A particular night, however, all of our parents had gone out to dinner and told us very specifically to not leave the house. Well, we would have locked the doors after they left and played games or something. You might be thinking that this is now becoming about an intruder, but I promise that this is 10 times more bizarre, and I still have no idea what happened. So, after the parents left, all of the cousins got together and we decided that we wanted ice cream and candy. Not that this is that important, but I remember Ben and Jerry's being the main target, so we devised a foolproof plan to sneak out and acquire the goods. Well, we thought it was foolproof. My older sister, the driver, my cousin Peyton, and we all loaded into my dad's car that was left at the house, and off we were to get some food we shouldn't have even left, to be honest, but kids do stupid things, right? So, on our way to the store, we get the snacks. We decided that Jack-in-the-Box sounded much better than some sugar, so off we went, and as we pulled up to the drive-thru, we decided that it was about 3 cars too long and that we should just go inside and order instead, and that was a big mistake. When we stepped inside, there was one girl in this restaurant. She was short with a small figure and wearing clothes, so she looked completely ready for an outie. The girl asked the cashier for a water cup, and the girl asked the cashier for a water cup and proceeded to fill it with either Sprite or some other soda. I remember the guy at their register sort of looking at her extremely confused, but it was a late night and he couldn't care less. I'm sure when she finished filling up her cup, she drank it extremely quickly and started to turn around to throw the cup out and leave. Now I have an awful memory, but I will never forget her eyes being wide open as if she had seen something scary. At this point, we had been standing at the entrance doors for the entire interaction, just sort of watching. For whatever reason, we were just nosy kids, I suppose, but as she was walking out, I looked down and noticed that she was gripping a large butcher's knife. And you guys, this thing was huge. Immediately my heart dropped and I heard my cousin begin to freak out. So this knife-wielding girl leaves the restaurant and we go on to order our food, talking about it to the guy at the register and kind of laughing it off, but also still very curious, confused, and a little bit scared, I admit. As we leave with our food, we see the girl crossing the street to the CBS. Now, it was kind of late, but there was still a good number of cars driving on this road at the time. She didn't look either way, just crossed with ease as if invincible, but we brushed it off and assumed that she was just doing her own thing. After a while of eating some tacos and talking about how fun it was to be out without permission, we saw maybe a dozen police lights start to enter the CVS parking lots. Like I said before, we were pretty nosy kids, so we decided to do what any nosy person would do and investigate. We drove over to the CVS and we were stopped in the parking lot by an officer to be asked a couple of questions. My memory gets a bit hazy here, but I do remember that it was a problem because my cousin and I were both minors at the time, technically, or something about being minors and involving ourselves with the police was actually a problem. So they asked us a couple of questions, and I just remember my sister and cousin explaining that we had seen a girl wielding a knife in the Jack-in-the-Box across the street, but with that they eventually let us go and we hurried back home a little bit. Later that night, when everyone, parents includers, were winding down for bed, now, mothers called the three of us into one of the rooms in the house to talk about something I don't think any of us really realized that they knew about what we did. They sat us down and calmly asked us what we did tonight, and I think we lied, but I don't quite remember. By the way, it was useless because somehow they knew everything, and even what we didn't know. You see, their moms told us that someone on Facebook had posted about 3 heroic girls that knew information about the girl in the situation that I'm about to explain to you. Heroic, hardly all we did was answer a few questions. The nosy, that's probably more like it, but they told us that this girl had entered the CVS and grabbed a woman by the hair and proceeded to hold the knife to her throat for like several minutes before the police could show up. Apparently people had tried to get her off, but it was useless. After all, she did have that weapon. The girl was apparently screaming and just being very aggressive, but as that was many years ago, I don't really remember too many details. All I do remember is that it was a really scary situation for a lot of people, and to this day I have to think about how easily that could have been one of us with a knife to the throat in Fort Worth Jack-in-the-Box, or how easily someone could have been hurt, or maybe even worse. Anyway, I'm just glad that everyone got out of that situation unscathed, and I'm really glad that nothing happened to us that night. So I used to order pizza a lot. I mean, I love pizza. Who doesn't, right? Well, my local pizza place, we've got a new driver who just way overstepped the boundaries of what's acceptable. I mean, he tried to force his way into my home at one point to share dinner with me, and just really general creepy behavior. So I stopped ordering pizza altogether. Well, really, I personally never noticed anything. I have a security system, so I figured all was well and I never check it really. But about 2 months after the pizza incident, I hear scratching at the side of my home. I figured that it must be an animal. I do live outside the city, so there are animals here looking for a place to nest. There was also a big fresh coating of snow, and it was cold, so I can only imagine that something is looking for a way in to be warm. So I do what I usually do. I let my dog out. He's huge, like 120 pounds, King Shepherd and Marina, and he just bolts out the door again, not totally unlike him when there's an animal outside. But about 15 to 20 seconds later, I hear screaming and swearing, and then screaming in pain and terror. I scream for my dog to come back, and he does. He's a good boy, and I call the police. Well, they do a search of the outside of the house, and what they find is blood, like lots of blood and primarks at the side of my house. We go through the footage of my security system, and sure enough, there's a person who's trying to force the window open. My dog charges him in tears at his butt and gets his leg pretty bad too, until I call him back and he gets up and lives off of my property. Well, at the front of my property, the entrance to my drive, I also have a camera. It's pretty well hidden, and I get the guy going to his car and also his plates, and the cops take it and they go to the hospital. Apparently there was a lot of blood, and whoever this person was, they were definitely going to need medical attention. Well, the police eventually find this guy, and apparently he says to them, "Oh, I was just trying to surprise my girlfriend and I fell, but I'm a widow and honestly I never plan on dating again for the rest of my life." They came back to my house, tell me this, and show me a picture, and sure enough, it was the pizza guy. The most disturbing thing is that they eventually searched his car and they found a rope, duct tape, a camera, and a knife in his car. I hear a lot of stories on here about stalkers and whatnot, and a lot of people blow it off as not a big deal, but really you should take it seriously because you never know who might be watching. So a few years ago, I, a female and 17 at the time, would attend community college at the outskirts of my hometown. I would take an hour-and-a-half long bus drive because both my parents worked and my other siblings were too young to drive me, so it's what I had to do, the outskirts of my town, despite being the literal outskirts, are more populated than you'd expect with strip malls and apartment buildings. Pretty much everything you need is there. The bus would drop me off about maybe 4 blocks from my university, which isn't too far. And I always enjoyed those few minutes, gave me time to sort of disassociate anyway. This one time I left my phone at the library like a true idiot using my brother's phone. I called a friend who worked at the school library during the late evening shift 7 to 9, and he said that he'd bring my phone to me, but he lived closer to the college than I did, so I told him that I would just meet him at his shift and I would pick it up myself. He said okay to this, and I boarded the bus at around 6. Now I get off the bus at my usual spot, and the place looked well deserted. I'd never been there that late at night before, and maybe it was because it was a weekday that people were home, or I don't know, but I had my brother's phone in my pocket and I just clutched it tighter and tighter, picked up my speed until I was practically jogging. I'm nearing to a corner when a flash of light goes off to my right, but there in the shadows is a really slimy, grimy looking man. He's balding with a tourist shirt unbuttoned halfway, showing off his chest here, and he was wearing sunglasses at night, was wearing some sort of gold jewelry, and was probably borderline morbidly obese. Just picture the word sleazy as a person, and you probably haven't. Most importantly, he had just taken a picture of me. The instant that I saw the flash go off, I knew it was coming from his phone too. Now I think it's important to understand our positioning for this. So he was pressed against a building to my right at the corner. I had to turn. I was about 10 feet away from him, and to my left on the same side of the street was a car with blacked out windows, no license plates. Directly across the sidewalk from this map, the car was parked with the driver's seat facing me, so that meant that it was on the wrong side of the road, because Americans drive on the right side as opposed to the left. Now I had slowed down at that point as I began to debate my next move: across the street and continue walking, make a break for the school, turn 180 and leave my phone at the library, or approach the potentially dangerous man. In the end, I probably did the stupidest thing possible, and then approached the man. I'm not going to sit here and give you like street advice or anything, but maybe just don't do what I did. I'm alive, but I was definitely lucky anyway. I demanded to know what he was doing, and he looks sort of taken aback by that question. I could see his brain sort of short-circuiting, because this tiny young girl was red in the face, demanding to know what he was doing. He eventually sputtered out about how he was just standing here. I said, no, I saw you take that picture of me, man, and his face immediately fell. He started saying, no, he didn't, he hadn't done that. Why would he want a picture of me? I'd imagined it. At this, I asked to see his gallery, which I know is extremely risky, because who knows what I would have seen, and getting close to the guy like that was crazy, but it's what I did. He slowly pulls up his gallery, and as it's opening, I see a blurry picture of me in the distance. To be honest, I didn't think that I would get that far, but granted, I had been running on adrenaline during our whole interaction, but this really made me pause. I told him to instantly delete it, but then a door slammed shut, and I just knew that it was that parked car across the road. My brain cleared up very quickly, and I hightailed it quickly to the school, but as I was running, I could hear a single pair of footsteps behind me. I sure as heck wasn't about to turn around though and check out who it was, but the car started. At some point they would have had to have done a U-turn on a relatively narrow street just to be able to follow me, and to be honest, I think that's what saved my life that night, the fact that the car was parked facing the wrong direction. Eventually I reached the school out of breath and in tears. My friend opened the building for me, and I was crying, explaining what happened. He locked us in while we waited for the police, but unfortunately the sleazy guy and his buddy, they were never found anyway. My mom had gotten out of work by that point, and I called her to ask to pick me up. We waited with my friend until the end of his shift and drove him home too. Needless to say, these days I carry mace with me everywhere I go now, and I'm yet to find a police report stating a guy matching his description had been arrested. To be honest, I don't think the police actually believe me fully, but who knows? Oh, and to this day too, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't have confronted him. Would I be here to write this story out, or did I put myself in unnecessary danger by doing that? I don't know. All I can say is that I'm thankful that I'm here. So about 2 years ago, my little cousin Jaden was 4 years old, and her family moved into a new house and started renovating it. Everything was fine too for a while, until one day Jaden, out of pretty much nowhere, just started telling her mom how she could see 2 kids in a room, and if that wasn't creepy enough, the kids had no face. I guess it either looked smeared or just blank or something, and they also had no arms. Apparently my arm was creeped out, obviously, but she kind of brushed it off and thought that maybe it was just imagination. My cousin started bringing them up more and more, though, telling more and more details about them. One was a boy and the other is a girl. They told her that they wanted her to play with them. Jaden said that they were nice to her, but then they started to scare her. I would have been scared from the beginning, but whatever. But she would wake up in the middle of the night screaming because she was so frightened by them. I didn't know what to do. My cousin would be playing, and when my aunt asks what she's doing, she would just say, playing with the kids. I guess that's they will only mean sometimes. It still gets a little more creepy. So besides there being 2 faceless and harmless kids in her room, there was also an old man with a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, as she explained, and this man was a mean man, and Jaden was very scared of him. She said that the 2 little kids were also scared of him, but the thing is that the man was only allowed on the porch. He wasn't allowed to come inside since he was so mean. So as long as my cousin was inside, she felt okay. And one night the family was eating dinner and they started to hear footsteps outside on the porch. The door is right beside the table, and my uncle went to see if somebody was out there. He came back and said that he didn't see anything, but Jaden, with a very straight face, was just like it's the main man. He's standing at the door watching a stat. Of course my aunt and uncle were freaked out, like what the heck just happened, but then she said it's okay, he can't come inside. That was a span of about 6 months, and a few months later they moved, and Jada never talked about the kids or the old man ever again. But honestly too, I'm not even sure if she remembers it, but I don't want to ask. I'm pretty sure that it was very scary for her at such a young age, and my aunt did some research about the house and saw an old man who wore cowboy boots and a cowboy hat used to live there, and actually died on the property. She could never find out about the kids though, which was really strange. My cousin has a few more creepy experiences too, so if you like this story, then be sure to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll see if I can get them for you. But for now, I hope you enjoyed. My grandma's house is really old. It was built in 1880, and my grandma grew up in this house, and she raised my dad there as well. My grandma and I were very close. She was a movie buff and past that interest belonged to me. My sister was always more fond of my mom's parents, but they died when I was like 10, and they had been fighting cancer for like 4 years, so I didn't have many good experiences with them, which was kind of sad. But anyways, fast forward to 2007, I'm 17, and now my grandma is dying. Crohn's disease and leukemia have really taken their toll. My grandma passes away at home peacefully, thankfully, and my dad inherits this house and its payments, but unwilling to just give it back to the bank. My sister and her new husband decide to move in and make the payments so that my dad didn't have to. We all helped clean out all of grandma's old stuff except the basement. All that was really left down there though was some old canning and jarring stuff. My grandma liked to make her own jams and jellies, but he gets to get out on my own. I moved out of my parents' house and here with my sister and brother-in-law. A couple of years go by and my sister says that she sees some stuff and hears things at times neither me or my brother-in-law ever did. Mind you, I'm really not the supernatural paranormal type sort of person, and generally I'm pretty skeptical, but eventually they get pregnant and decide the house is too old to try and update and baby-proof, so they decide to move out. So now it's just me and the two cats. After some time my girlfriend moves in with me too, but she's very superstitious and would often tell me that she hears things like footsteps from upstairs. We stayed in a small bedroom on the main floor because the upstairs of the house had the poorest insulation ever, and if it was cold outside it was pretty much freezing up there. Vice versa in the summer as well. Being the skeptical person that I was, I always had some sort of an explanation for what she heard. Maybe it was Chaz, my sister's cat. Chaz was huge. She easily weighed like 25 pounds and had a very heavy step for a cat, and was not graceful at all, and she liked to sort of sneak upstairs. So to me it just all sort of added up. But one night while at work just down the road a few hundred yards, I get a picture from my girlfriend and super excited that it might be a nude. You can. Okay, that's enough for today guys. I hope you like this story. If you like this story then like and subscribe to our channel. We meet you in part 2 of the same story. Have fun guys. Bye.